Hello, welcome back to my garden. Today, I'm not cleaning this up. I need to clean this up. I need to get all these gladiolus leaves and I need to dig up there's a bunch of canna right here which I need to dig up and cut back cut back first, then dig up, but you guys get the point. And then there's whatever this is. This needs to come out. I have no idea what this is. That needs to come out. But none of this is happening today. Simply because I really don't have a good place to put all of this. And that is what we're going to be doing today, is building some new compost bins. But Jason, you already have compost bins, you may be saying. I do, but let me show you. Here we are at the back of the vegetable garden, and yes, I have some compost bins here. These were bought online, Amazon I think, and I think they're produced by Greens. I think that's the manufacturer name, not sponsored. And they've served me well for the last, I've had these for now 4 years at least 4 years. And I had them located elsewhere in the garden when I initially started building the garden, and then I moved them into the vegetable garden here so the compost would be closer to, well, everything, whether I'm using it here in the vegetable garden or whether I'm using it elsewhere throughout the garden. If you're new to the channel, there's a map of my garden on my website, growinggreenfinger.com, and the vegetable garden is sort of the hub of the garden. This is where everything sort of starts and where everything kind of ends. I come out of the house, cross my driveway, I come into the vegetable garden, and from my vegetable garden here, I go elsewhere throughout my garden, whether it be rose garden or the orchard or the flower garden, whatever it is, this is where it all sort of starts. So I thought this would be a good place to put the compost bins, especially at the back of the vegetable garden where they're sort of out of sight. Unfortunately, due to the heat and humidity, these bins are kind of shot. Now the top boards are fine. They're good solid boards still because they're not in constant contact with soil and or moisture. But the bottom bins are, they're all rotting away on me. The other small problem that I have here is that these bins are a little on the small side. And as the garden grows, I'm producing more garden waste. And by waste, I just mean all the leaves and the debris. And then you saw that big pile of canna and gladiolus leaves. Well, they're not all going to fit in one bin. They might, but then they'd fill up one bin. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to tear these down. I'm going to start building up new compost bins. And in case you were wondering what I'm going to build the compost bins out of, simply pallets. I'm going to use pallets for a couple of reasons. One, you guys have probably seen when I order my compost or if I order mulch, I order from my local big box store, which in this case happens to be Lowe's. It comes on pallets because I order fairly large quantities of it, and then I'm stuck with the pallet. And now you can do a variety of things with pallets. I've built all the gates here in the garden with pallets. I actually have to build another gate for the rose garden. I have to build a large decorative gate for the end of the grand walkway, which hopefully I'll get done January, February, maybe. We'll see how things go. But it's going to be an upcoming project that I really hope to accomplish this year because I've said the same thing the last couple of years and I haven't done it. So I have a lot of these pallets. Instead of going out and spending yet more money that I don't have on another set of bins which aren't quite large enough, or getting something that's more modern, such as a metal composting bin. Yeah, they have metal composting bins now. They have, of course, you guys have all seen the tumblers. They all come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. I really don't like the plastic ones because, well, it's just yet more plastic that'll eventually wind up in the landfill because they're not really recyclable. And yeah, they'll last me 10, 20 years, maybe. I'm getting off track. So I'm going to use some of these pallets here to try to build some bins, and then I'll have some place to put all my waste. I'm going to be winging this. I have seen a lot of different ideas and solutions and other ways that other gardeners have done this. If you go on to, let's say, Pinterest or just do a Google search of pallet compost bins, you will find a wide variety of different solutions and a wide variety of different ways to do this. I'm going to try to do this the simplest way possible for me and spend the least amount of money. So with all that being said, let's get rid of some of these old bins. Now the nice thing about these old bins from Greens, again, I think that's the manufacturer's name, is there's no screws or anything, and it's just these slats which are notched into these posts. Now again, I've had this system for 4 years, and I'm actually very surprised that it has held up as long as it's held up, because again, a lot of heat and humidity down here in eastern North Carolina. Some of these boards, which are in relatively good condition, I think I'm gonna keep, and I'll use them for a future project of something. I don't know, maybe I'll make some potting trays out of these or something, because for the most part, these boards, I don't know you guys can see this, they're in pretty good condition. They are a little rough. I would need to cut them down, trim them down, maybe plane them down, but the wood is solid. It's not rotted away. Here's a board, and hopefully you guys can see this, that is rotted away. This one was on the bottom, and hopefully you guys can see all that. So the wood is just rotting. There's all sorts of insects which have gone through this board, and it's done. But I will not throw this in the regular trash. This will go at the bottom of the compost pile, and eventually it will rot away. This post used to be like that. Now it's just all rotted. Now there's a bunch of different ways to attach all of this stuff. If you go on Pinterest and you look, some people will use wire of some sort. They'll use, I've seen rope used, which is not all that common, but I have seen used. They'll use screws or nails. I'm going to be using screws today. Now the screws I'm using are going to be an outdoor variety of screws, because I'd like these bins to last me at least a couple of years. That being said, these boards will probably rot out within a couple of years, the ones on the bottom at least, but if I can get a couple of years out of these, so be it, all the better. And I'm setting these up to try to be taller so I can put more stuff in there. The problem with the old compost bins, they were a little too low. I couldn't squeeze that much in. They're about 3 foot by 3 foot roughly. These are going to be bigger, obviously, because pallets are sort of rectangular. I've set them so that they're going to be on the taller side. And I'll show you what I'm going to do for the inside, because there are all these gaps. This process is entirely up to you, how you want to handle this if you were going to undertake such a project. And many of you may already have. Some of you, I've seen where people will take off some of these boards, they'll replace the boards, they'll try to make the gaps smaller. They'll put a lot of effort into this. I'm trying to go for the minimal amount of effort today. So I'm going to put one screw up here. I'll try to get another screw down towards the bottom, and that's pretty much it. I'm not going anything fancy, but you can do whatever you want. You guys can set them up the way you want to set them up. And I'm really not trying to make these super straight or super square. There's one. I like that. While I was thinking about redoing the compost bins, and it is something I may play with or do in the future, and that is something more permanent. And what I would do is, and I've seen this on Pinterest, which is what sparked my interest, is you take a series of concrete blocks, stack them up to the appropriate height and depth that you want. You can cap them if you want with smaller, thinner blocks, make them as decorative as you'd like, and then you don't have to worry about them rotting away. They would last virtually forever. It would be a great long-term solution, and it is something I still might do in the future, given the appropriate funding or funds. Anywho, let's move on. Oh, that would work pretty well. Okay. For this front panel, I could take apart these boards, I could restack boards, you could do 100 different things with this. I think what I'm going to do with this board, with this pallet, is wire it into place. And I kind of want it high. I don't want it this high, but I do want it high. So I can stack my material up to, well, let's say this high, and it'll stay relatively in. This is higher than the other boards on the old compost bins. But to get a shovel in here and to dig it out is going to be a little more of a pain than as with the old system, which had lower walls. So what I think I'm going to do is wire this into place, and then if I want to take compost out in 6 months, I should theoretically be able to take this apart. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to wire this to make it as simple as possible. And what I think I may do is put a little screw right here in this top board, make a loop, hook the wire onto that. That should hold it into place. Do the same thing on that end, and then this bin will be complete. Put a screw, Did bits of wire, nothing special here. You notice a little loose. So this panel, maybe 1/2 inch, right? And this way I could push up against it, lift the loop, and then do the same thing on this side, lift the loop, and now I can take this pallet away so I could dig out the compost bin easier. So now this one bin went together pretty simply. Again, you could get as complicated as you want. I just did a couple of screws to hold each of the sides on. I have a couple of screws with some wire holding the front on. So I think now I'm going to transfer all this into this so I can build myself a few more bays here. So here we are, new compost bins in place. I don't have another shorter rectangular pallet like this for the end, so I may have to cut one down, which is something I was hoping not to do. Or I may just put a full-size pallet in there, just use the bit of screw and a wire, and I can have maybe a hinged door or something. I'm not sure how I'm going to use this last bin. I may use this last bin as a storage bin for my compost, although usually when my compost is done, I wind up spreading it someplace here in the garden. You may have noticed that I ran into some fire ants, and I've been doing a bit of a dance every now and again. Maybe see me tapping my feet, and that's just to shake the ants off. This upcoming year, I'm thinking, and plans are still ever evolving and changing, but I'm thinking of taking all my shrub cuttings and putting them on top of the bins here. And that's for two reasons. One, if maybe something changes in the upcoming year and I can start building my potting shed, it's going to go where the cuttings are. And if that happens, then I'm going to need some place to put all my shrub cuttings, so I can lay the boards out across here and put my shrub cuttings on top. And this way I'm not wasting space. The cuttings will be up here. I can still easy access them. I can water them, and I'll have space for the potting shed. I forgot to mention, if you're building a system like this, if you've never done a system like this and you're worried about the slats in the wood and the material falling through or moving from one bin to another, an easy, cheap solution that you could do is just line your bed with cardboard. You just put it up against the wall. You can layer them, then your material will hold it in place. Once it breaks down, the cardboard itself will rot away, which is fabulous. And then you can empty out the bin, start over from scratch, put some new cardboard in there, and go from there. So this is it. I'm pretty happy with it. Now there's still quite a bit of room here in this first bin. So all of those gladiolus and canna leaves that you saw in the beginning of this video, they'll be going in here. Some people will do the whole 3-bin rotation bit, where you put stuff in here, the raw materials, it starts to break down. Maybe you toss it after 2 or 3 weeks, then in another 3 or 4 weeks you come back, and then you take it and you move it into this next bin where it continues to rot down, and then finally you move it into the last bin after like 4 to 6 weeks, and then you put it in that last bin, and it's basically compost at that point. Maybe it's still a little chunky with various bits and bobs of whatever's in there, but for the most part it's broken down, and you can let it finish rotting in that final bin and doing it that way. I have not been running my compost system that way. I have basically been filling up a bin. Once it's full, I go to the next bin, I start filling that one up. Once it's full, I go to the next bin, I start filling that one up. By the time I get that one full, this one's rotted down. So then I'll take the compost out of this one, spread it someplace in the garden, use it someplace in the garden, And then this one's ready to start filling up with new material, so on and so forth. That's just the way I run my compost. I know Charles Dowding, not sponsored, has come out with a compost book recently. Actually, it's on my Amazon wish list. So hopefully I'll try to get that soon. If you ever visited Charles Dowding's website, or if you know who I'm talking about, he has an incredible compost bin system, but he also goes through an extraordinary amount of compost every year because he doesn't use fertilizers on the ground for growing his vegetables. He just uses compost. And he has some very nice compost, and he's become quite adept over the years of his compost system. And he has a very good system, and it works very good for him. And this is all he uses for his vegetable garden. And that's the system that he uses. Maybe go check out his book. I'm going to try to get his book. I doubt that there's anything new and original about compost in there, but maybe there's some further insight, and maybe he has some other ideas that people aren't talking about. And it's always good to get new and fresh ideas. Anywho, if you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Click that bell icon to be notified when I do post a new video. This way you can follow along to see what project I'm up to next. And there are a bunch of projects that I need to be getting done now in the winter time while the getting's good. Like I said, I still have some flower beds to clean up, and there's a few other heavy lift projects that I want to try to get done now in the winter so that I don't have to be doing them in the heat of the summer. Also, please check out the links below. There's also some good stuff there. And so I think that's going to wrap it up for today. I'm going to catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.